The Nigerian oil service industry has a lot of potential, and I think we've grown compared to other African countries. Indigenous oil service companies within the African continent. I think we've done pretty well. We have a lot of engineers with a lot of oil and gas engineers with a lot of content who have done tremendously well in terms of training and in terms of capacity within the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. But we have a few challenges. And the challenges is that one of the major challenges we do have is that we are not being encouraged with a very good enabling environment to express ourselves within the oil and gas industry. We have community issues, we also have government issues concerning giving us the capacity to grow, and also trying to encourage the IOCs, the international oil companies, to give us more opportunities than we actually have as an indigenous group within Nigeria.
You don't think the Local Content Act of 2010 made a huge difference in the sector?
I think the 2010 Local Content Act has made a difference, but not as much as we expected it to. In terms of our expectations were much higher than what has been delivered so far. And we're hopeful that as time goes on, that gradually we'll be able to achieve what the Local Content Act was set out to achieve.
Shed more light on some of these expectations you think have not been met.
We're still having a challenge in terms of finance. In Nigeria, the banks here, the borrowing here is quite expensive in terms of the interest rates that are being charged. And most of the funds that we get are short-term funds, maybe 60 days, 180 days. Max you can get is actually 365 days funding in Nigeria. But you find that the kind of funds we need are much bigger in terms of volume and also in terms of the amount of time. Like 5 years, we're expecting to get funds. If you're going into business here, you would expect at least 5-year funds, 3-year funds, so for you to execute work and for you to be able to recover your money and pay back the banks. But that's usually a huge challenge, funding.
Now that's a challenge being caused by the financial institutions and not the government.
I think the environment as well also causes it as well. You find that you're having challenges with the oil companies in terms of work. You're also having challenges with the communities in terms of being able to allow you to work and execute the work as and when you're supposed to do it. So, I think challenges are there.
Everyone keeps talking about hostility from these communities, which has also led to large-scale vandalism of both oil and gas pipelines. How do you think we can tackle this? How can we bring this to an end? It's gone on for too long.
I think it has a lot to do with dialogue, constant dialogue, and also communication, knowledge, sharing knowledge with the local communities. Let them be aware of the impact of this hostility towards they themselves and their own development. I think it's important. And I think it's also about being selfless. One of the major challenges is that we're in an environment where everybody thinks of only themselves, and they're just out there to try and get for themselves. If we think of more about offering service to mankind, to our communities, to our environment, I think the perception will change. Because it's pretty difficult out there, because everybody just thinks of themselves and this grab mentality. And it's, I think that's one of the major causes of why we have issues with the communities where we work.
You did say something interesting earlier on. You did mention that it will be nice for IOCs to give indigenous companies better opportunities. Shed more light on some of these opportunities you're referring to.
Over the years, there are certain projects, especially the very huge EPC projects, engineering, procurement and construction, or installation or commissioning projects. There have been, a lot of them are awarded to the international oil service companies, the Hyundais, the Daewoo's, the Saipems. And I would have expected at this point of our growth in the Nigerian oil industry for local indigenous companies to actually come together and form consortiums to be able to bid for these projects and win these projects. And you can only do that with the encouragement of the international oil companies. They will encourage you and support you in putting together these consortiums and delivering on these projects. and is non-existent at the moment.
Okay. Are there policies you think should be introduced to make things better in the sector? Or are you satisfied with what exists at the moment, especially for businesses like yours?
I think dialogue, I think a situation where we have forums where we can actually interact with government, interact with community, where there's no, as we speak, there's no forum where communities get together with government, service providers, IOC, so we can sit down and we can actually dialogue, talk about what are their problems, what are the problems we also encounter, how do we navigate through these problems, and it becomes a win-win with us, the communities, with the IOCs, and also the service providers. And we put policies in place and implement such policies after such forums and meetings. It has never happened. Throughout my being in the oil industry, I've never seen a forum where the communities, the IOCs, and the service providers meet and dialogue and share common issues and common challenges. It has never happened.
In a few days, Nigeria will be welcoming a new president, or rather a new administration. What do you think this administration should focus on, especially as regards the oil and gas space?
For this sector, the priority should be the petroleum industry bill, to be able to pass the bill and commence instant implementation of the petroleum industry bill. It's something I'll expect them to do the moment they come into power, they are sworn into government. And also, I believe that they should hit the ground running. Because most often and most times when a government is sworn into power in Nigeria, there's a lot of time lag between when they put themselves together and they start going through what needs to be done and not to be done. So I believe that they should prepare themselves to hit the ground running.